I almost didn't believe it at first. There I was, standing in the dim light of my living room, staring at the blinking notification on my phone. The video feed from the camera in my backyard was live. I tapped it, bracing myself for something mundane, maybe a stray cat or the wind rustling the leaves. But no, it was her, Diane Peterson, our HOA president. In the middle of the night, there she was, crouched over my rainwater system, twisting open valves with a key that I didn't even know existed. My heart dropped. What the hell was she doing in my yard? I couldn't breathe. The video feed illuminated her face in the eerie green glow of the night vision. There was no guilt there, no hesitation. She was acting like she owned the place, like my rainwater system, the one I'd worked so hard to install and maintain, was nothing more than a personal water source for her. I stood there frozen, my fingers trembling as I zoomed in on the image. Every ounce of my professional training as a software engineer kicked into overdrive. This wasn't just random. This wasn't an accident. Someone was tampering with my system. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I watched as Diane calmly turned the valve, water flowing freely out of the system. It wasn't much, just a few gallons at a time, but it was enough to set off a pattern I'd been noticing for the past few weeks. The water level in my 5,000-gallon tank had been mysteriously dropping every few days, usually between midnight and 2 a.m. It wasn't evaporation. It wasn't a leak. Someone was deliberately taking my water. But why? I didn't wait another second. My breath caught in my throat as I rushed to wake Rachel, my wife, who had been asleep beside me. "Rachel," I whispered urgently, shaking her awake, "you have to see this." She rubbed her eyes, groggy, but I could tell from the moment I showed her the footage that the gravity of the situation hit her just as hard as it hit me. "This is serious," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Diane practically runs this neighborhood. People do what she says. If we confront her directly, she could make our lives hell." I didn't care about the consequences. This woman had been sending us warning letters for months, telling us our rainwater system was an eyesore, demanding we remove it because it violated some vague aesthetic code. My system was grandfathered in. It was legal. But she didn't care about the rules. She was above them. She thought she could make her own, that she could bend this neighborhood to her will. But this, stealing water from me in the dead of night, that crossed the line. "I'm going to confront her," I said, my voice firm. "I don't care if it makes her mad. She's not going to get away with this." Rachel stopped me before I could head out the door. "Alex, we need a plan," she insisted. "Let's not let our emotions drive us. We need to gather more evidence. This is too big to confront without it. We need to be smart." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the fear behind it. Rachel had never been the type to back down, but she knew what Diane was capable of, and I could feel it too, deep in my bones. This wasn't just a petty HOA dispute anymore. This was something much darker. Diane's theft was just the beginning. Something was bigger at play here, and I needed to figure out what it was before it consumed us. That night, we decided to install more cameras around the yard, ones that were less obvious, ones that Diane wouldn't immediately notice. We were playing a dangerous game, but we had no choice. I couldn't let her get away with this. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Diane sneaking around my backyard, taking more water. The thought of her using our system as her personal resource while she harassed us over minor violations made my blood boil. Then, the breakthrough came. It was a Sunday morning, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through the data logs from the cameras and sensors. Rachel had set up a new data visualization tool on my laptop, and I was running some basic analysis, just trying to confirm the patterns. And there it was. The camera had caught Diane again. But this time, I noticed something new. A shadowy figure following her. I rewound the footage, played it frame by frame, and there it was. A tall man wearing a dark jacket, trailing behind her as she turned the valve. He wasn't just someone passing by. He was there, actively watching, waiting. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Diane wasn't working alone. I froze. Who was he, and why was he helping her? By now, Rachel and I had gathered enough evidence to start piecing together what was really happening. But the more we uncovered, the darker the story became. I spoke to our neighbor, Emily Taylor, who had lived in Pinewood Estates for over a decade. She was a lawyer, one of the few people who had welcomed us when we moved in. Over iced tea on her porch, I carefully steered the conversation toward Diane. I needed to know what she knew. Diane's been under a lot of pressure lately, Emily said, her voice low. She's trying to sell her house at a premium price, and she was counting on that big commission. But then the listing fell through. A wealthy couple canceled on her. She's not doing well. I blinked. The pieces were starting to fall into place. Diane was desperate. If she lost her commission on this sale, she'd lose everything. The house, her position in the neighborhood, her image. And what better way to save face than to get rid of the one thing threatening her carefully curated life? My rainwater system was a threat. Not just because it was unconventional, but because it provided an alternative water source during drought conditions, something Diane couldn't control. She doesn't just want to ban your system, Emily continued, her voice growing more serious. She needs to get rid of it. It's the only thing standing between her and a sale. If people find out she's been stealing from it, her reputation will be destroyed. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Diane had been trying to sabotage us for months, but this was personal. She wasn't just attacking us to make a point. She was doing it to protect herself, her image, her finances, her power. The day of the city inspection arrived. The tension in the air was palpable. Diane was smug, her usual confidence evident as she rallied the HOA board members ready to push her agenda forward. But Rachel and I had prepared our defense, backed by evidence that couldn't be ignored. I made sure to arrive early, ensuring that the inspectors saw the system in its full working order before any tampering occurred. Frank was on call to assist, explaining the intricacies of the system's design and its emergency function to the inspectors. When Diane tried to push her narrative, claiming that the system was unsafe and a hazard to neighborhood aesthetics, I stood firm, presenting the city's documentation and Frank's expert testimony. But it wasn't until Rachel pulled out her trump card, an official city declaration recognizing the system as essential infrastructure, that everything fell into place. The room grew tense. Diane's face paled as the inspectors reviewed the documents, her plans unraveling before her. She tried to defend herself, but the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, the inspectors were forced to admit that the system couldn't be removed without legal ramifications. Diane's objections fell on deaf ears. But just as we thought we had won, Diane made her final desperate move. "This isn't over, Alex," she hissed, her voice low but threatening. "You think you've won? You've only just started a war." A few days later, as I walked to the mailbox, a thick envelope from the city caught my eye. I opened it with shaking hands, and what I found inside was a bombshell. Diane's water theft had been reported. The authorities had traced the water from our system to her swimming pool. Confirming what we had all suspected, Diane had been siphoning water illegally from us for months, violating drought restrictions. The city moved quickly and launching an official investigation into her actions. Diane was removed from her position as HOA president, and criminal charges were considered for theft and property damage. Her house, once a symbol of her control over the neighborhood, was now tarnished with scandal. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Diane's reputation crumbled, and her fraudulent actions were exposed for the whole neighborhood to see. Her house was put up for sale, but the damage had been done. She couldn't hide her misdeeds, and prospective buyers walked away. Even the HOA board members, once loyal to her, distanced themselves, realizing they had been manipulated by her greed and deception. Rachel and I, on the other hand, found a sense of peace. Our system, once the subject of ridicule, became a symbol of resilience for Pinewood Estates. The city officially recognized it as a vital community resource, and new systems were even proposed for other neighborhoods, inspired by the success of our emergency infrastructure. Neighbors who had once avoided us now stopped by to thank us, some even asking how they could help install similar systems on their properties. Pinewood Estates became a model of sustainability, and our home, once the target of so much disdain, became a community hub. And as for Diane, she moved away, her plans for a perfect, pristine life completely destroyed. In the end, she had tried to destroy something good, only to reveal her own hypocrisy and deceit. And as she left Pinewood, she couldn't help but leave behind a trail of destruction that no one could ignore.